looking at this, he's president, he's commander in chief. If we invade Venezuela, you think Trump's not walking away with the oil? At least on very favorable terms? He'd be crazy not to. And of course, just like it's the Democrats who forced this government shutdown and now have made themselves vulnerable to tens or hundreds of thousands of high BMI federal hacks getting summarily fired by Russ Vought, Maduro's opened the door to Trump invading his nation and taking his oil from him and probably taking his life. So Maduro opened up the door to this. If Maduro just sat there and had his oil, we'd probably leave him alone. But he's compelled to run the fentanyl, run the drugs, run the cartels, run Tren de Aragua into our country. And Trump's like, all right, man. I mean, there wouldn't be none if you didn't start none, but you started some. So now you're going to get some. Of course, one thing that Venezuela has a lot of, besides fentanyl and terrorist Tren de Aragua cartels and dictators, is oil. Venezuela arguably has the single largest reserves of oil on the planet. Did you know that? And so as those on the left are saying things like, well, it's not really about the fentanyl. It's about the oil. Trump wants to control the oil. It's not the fentanyl. It's the oil. And what I tell those people is, why not embrace the power of and? Why can't it be both? Maybe the fentanyl by itself would not be enough to justify for America's national interest an invasion of Venezuela. Maybe the oil by itself would not be enough to justify an American invasion of Venezuela. But maybe fentanyl plus oil equals invasion of Venezuela by U.S. military forces. If you've heard Trump talk about the Middle East wars we've been fighting until President Joe Autopen Dementia Biden abandoned all our military equipment in the Middle East, Trump was actually quite upset. We fought all those wars in an oil-rich region. We spent all that money, all that U.S. treasure, all those American lives, and we didn't even walk away with the oil. To Trump, that seems a poor deal. And I have to agree with him. It seems a poor deal. As Trump, looking at this, he's president, he's commander in chief. If we invade Venezuela, you think Trump's not walking away with the oil? At least on very favorable terms? He'd be crazy not to. And of course, just like it's the Democrats who forced this government shutdown and now have made themselves vulnerable to tens or hundreds of thousands of high BMI federal hacks getting summarily fired by Russ Vought, Maduro's opened the door to Trump invading his nation and taking his oil from him and probably taking his life. We've had multi-million-dollar rewards out on Maduro's head for many, many years. I think it's 15 million right now. And $1 million rewards out for his officers working under him. So Maduro opened up the door to this. If Maduro just sat there and had his oil, we'd probably leave him alone. But he's compelled to run the fentanyl, run the drugs, run the cartels, run Tren de Aragua into our country. And Trump's like, all right, man. I mean, there wouldn't be none if you didn't start none, but you started some. So now you're going to get some. And Venezuela doesn't just have oil fields. They have oil fields with a lot of oil. So proven crude oil reserves ranked by nation. There's some nations that are familiar to us as having oil. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Canada, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Russia. United States has a lot of oil. Libya, famously a lot of oil. Venezuela beats all of them, generally by very sizable margins. The largest proven reserves of oil in the world are in Venezuela, in our hemisphere, just sitting there doing nothing. And that nation is running fentanyl, engaged for years in irregular chemical warfare against our fellow American citizens, against our nation. I wonder if there's anything we could do about that would be surprisingly productive for our nation. I wonder if there's anything that could be done. Now, here's an interesting juxtaposition because, again, we have the crude oil reserves here on the left, the black bars ranked in order of the amount of proven crude oil reserves. Venezuela, of course, is at the top. But look at the exports. Venezuela exports almost no oil. It has the most. And of all these nations, it exports by far the least, almost nothing. Almost nothing. And the reason for that is largely because of U.S. sanctions. Here's a graph of their millions of barrels a day of oil that the U.S. was importing from Venezuela. And you can see it's been going down since the late 1990s and then collapsed completely under Trump. when Trump puts sanctions in effect in 2019. Well, I guess that would have been Biden who put the sanctions. Oh, that's 2019. And now the U.S. is authorizing Chevron to get a little bit of oil out of Venezuela. Dwayne, $5, says, what's wrong with stabilizing the region and capitalizing on Venezuela's massive petroleum reserves at the same time? Right now, it's China's. I don't see anything wrong with it. Let's enforce the Monroe Doctrine. This is our hemisphere. We'll leave everything alone pretty much unless outside forces come into our house and try to take it for themselves. And then we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. That will not be allowed to continue. By the way, I'll tell you a funny story. So when I first moved to Massachusetts, I had just graduated law school. I was studying for the bar exam. And as you might imagine, I was dead broke. I was poor. And I was living in a triple-decker. I was living in a triple-decker in Somerville, Massachusetts, with a girlfriend. And the house was heated. Of course, this is, the Boston area. It's cold winters. The house was heated with fuel oil, not gas, fuel oil. And so it had a big tank in the basement. You had to get it filled up. And generally, you got it filled up. It was a big bill. Could be $1,000, $2,000. I think it was a 500-gallon tank. So just the price per gallon of oil. But there was a charitable organization in Boston, in the Boston area, that provided people who didn't have a lot of money with greatly discounted fuel oil for fueling their homes. And I thought, well, that sounds great to me. It was like half the price you would have to pay on the open market price for oil. So I contacted this organization and met the income, I would say the lack of income requirements as I was studying for the bar exam. And I got my fuel oil cheap, real cheap. It was fantastic. You know what I discovered? Years later, I discovered that this organization was actually run by one of the Kennedys, one of the little-known Kennedys. And he got the oil so cheap to resell at a discounted price because he got it straight from Venezuela. The commies in Venezuela were giving the commie Kennedys in Massachusetts almost free oil that then this Kennedy character could resell, undercut the market value, and keep all that money. He was making millions and millions. Someone says citizens' power. That rings a familiar bell. It could have been called that. Citizens' power. That Kennedy was making millions and millions of dollars every year off of this gift from the communists in Venezuela. He was also, apparently, diddling his kid's babysitter. I mean, he's a Kennedy, right? So he's diddling his kid's babysitter. That got exposed. That was very embarrassing for him. And then he went skiing and he skied himself at speed into a tree and died. I don't know what happened. I think another Kennedy, one of his brothers or cousins, took over this Venezuelan communist oil graft afterwards. But by then I was making money. So I just paid for my own oil. It wasn't Sonny Bono. It was another guy. Let's see. I'll just Google it. Which Kennedy was it? Shouldn't be hard to find. Kennedy skied into a tree. Michael. That's who it was. Michael Kennedy. What a bunch of shitheads that Kennedy clan was. Ted drowns a girl in a car in the trunk of his car. Goes home. Sleeps all night. Then when he wakes up in the morning, he contacts a lawyer. The girl's floating dead in the trunk of his car. Of course, the Democrats then made him the lion of the Senate for the rest of his life. That's what they do.